considering all he's done the last 2 years, but this is the first time Aiden's going into game one as the guy. Is there still like a level of excitement to being a starter for game one going into this, even though he's done so much in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I would think so. I think that's odd circumstances. Not odd. I mean, the first year we played out like it did. It had an injury, and last year could have been him or Logan. I thought they were both played well in the playoffs. So look back at that. They gave us good goaltending. We didn't score enough, but yeah, I guess going in, this will be the first time, and it's a lot of first times for Aiden this year, right? 50 games, complete healthy year, signs an extent, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of that, hey, I'm the guy, and this goes along with it, right? Just the last piece of the puzzle. I'm the guy. I'm starting game one, and I'm the guy they're looking for to give us a chance to win. So I assume that's how he's looking at it, yeah.
Along the lines of other firsts, Victor Olofsson playing in his first postseason, he made it clear that he wanted to come here because he wanted this kind of opportunity. But just what kind of leadership, veteran presence has he brought? And has it kind of gone a little under the radar this year?
He's a quiet guy. So what we've got from Victor is good hockey play on the ice. He scored some goals for us. Was he at 15? Missed some time, so it's probably extrapolated to 20-some goal scorer. That's what we're hoping to get out of him. He's a, plus 15 or so. He's a good defensive player, checks well. He's done a lot of things that we were hoping he'd do for us and thought he could do for us, and so good for him. Been a nice piece to our team. The leadership part, I think it's hard to come into this room right away because there's some veteran guys that have won, but I'd say he's led by going out there and playing his game, practicing well, no maintenance, good teammate. Happy for him. He's going to get in. So be a learning curve a little bit. The level of intensity goes up, but that'll be up to him to sort of manage that.
How much healthier is this team now compared to last year at this time?
That's a good question. Last year, I got to think back because of my age. So it was Stoney with the spleen, correct? So we weren't even sure he'd play. Hurdle that had a knee injury that he played the last few games, so we were still trying to figure out where he best fit. Those were the two main ones for us. I can't even remember if anybody else was hurt going in. Petro? Yeah. Oh, right. So there you go. Those are three big pieces. So this year, let's just talk about this year now. Everyone's healthy. Today we had guys off for maintenance reasons. We've tried to manage our practice load, game load this whole week. Will that work out for us in the long run? We'll see. But we've tried to put a plan together where guys are getting a day or an extra day or two here. So it'll help them in the long run. We'll see how it plays out for game one. Sometimes when you're off, is there rust? I don't know. We'll see about that. There shouldn't be. It's only a week, but we are healthy. Everyone's able to go. I wouldn't say anybody at this time of the year is completely 100%. You got nagging things, but nothing that could prevent a guy from playing or having us put another guy in ahead of him because he's only 80%. Nobody's in that position, so that's kind of nice. Sounds like Minnesota's in the same boat. That's good this time of year for teams. Other teams I've read today got some bad news on players, so that's always a little bit of adversity. We don't have to deal with that, at least, knock on wood, not yet.
One more thing. Obviously, a lot of discipline, a few penalty minutes, but didn't go in the power play much either. How do you explain kind of that oddity?
The what, sorry?
Didn't go in the power play much either.
No. Well, we set a record since they give stats for the least amount of penalty minutes. So we are a disciplined team. We play the right way. We check well. So we don't anticipate being in the box very often. We'll see how that plays out. Anything can happen, but that was our history this year. Consistently did a good job in that area. Power play, I don't know why we can't draw more penalties. I feel like there's every game, those 60-40, 70-30 ones never seem to completely go our way. I can't control that. try to stay off the refs, remind them. But I do think we are a big, strong team. We don't go down easy. I don't think anybody, at least since I've been here, I don't know if anybody's ever gotten a letter or fine for diving or anything like that. I could be wrong, but I don't believe it's ever happened here. So our guys play the right way. Hopefully if there's an infraction out there, that's obvious, it gets called. But can't control that. That is an advantage for us right now. Our power play numbers versus our PK numbers are advantage. That can change in a series quickly, but hopefully we get an opportunity to get on if we deserve it. It's that simple to me.
Back to Aiden. He didn't play last week or going into the playoffs. What happened in 23 coming in mid-playoffs, last year mid-series, this year coming out of
Should
Four
I wait and
Nations?
throw him in the middle of the series, Darren? Is that
Well,
where you're
he's been so
I
good.
can read your mind.
He's been so good in that area. Did that influence handling him this past week, or was it independent of that?
In reality, every goalie, I think, likes to stay in their rhythm. I'm sure he would have preferred to play one of the games, get his rhythm, his day off, etc. So I had that conversation with Sean Berkey. I thought his, rest and being ready to go in game one was more important than missing one game. This happens in playoff series. If you're lucky enough to advance and close a series early, sometimes you got to wait. Even if you don't, the TV dictates you might wait 8-9 days. So it's not new. It's new for the first round, right? Typically, you're going in 3 or 4 days later. So that's the decision we made. We didn't want to risk any potential injury. He had a great year for us. Start of the year, we had him pegged for close to 50 games, somewhere there. If we had to be a little high, probably meant our backup was hurt or something was going on. If we're a little low, probably meant he had to miss time. But none of that happened. Our backups played well. He didn't get hurt, so it worked out really well for his number. So we wanted to stay at that number, give him his rest. He was a Four Nations guy. If he didn't play in the tournament, but he's there every day. He's practicing. So you're still going through the mental process. So that was our thinking with Hanif and Stone. Theo had gotten hurt. It would have been our thinking, but he missed his time, and Jack had missed time. Would have been the same. So, and Carly missed time. Didn't play in it. Petro, so they didn't matter. But those 3 guys, we wanted to try to give them some time at some point, and here it is. We'll see. We'll see how it works out if there's rust in his game. If there is, I don't think it'll be there long. It was 8 days. We'll see if that was the right call or not.
Going back to the lack of penalties being called on you guys, is there a bit of an advantage there going into the playoffs? Because we know that they generally don't call as many penalties in the playoffs as they do in the regular season, and you guys were really good in the limited opportunities that you had, taking advantage of them. So is there a bit of an advantage there for you guys?
Well, I don't know how it'll play out. We like our special teams, even though our PK numbers weren't, the percentage number wasn't great. We liked the direction we're going and what we're giving up, how we're killing. So I don't know if there would be advantage either way, how it plays out. But going back to what you said, I don't know if there's less penalties called early on. I think a lot of times the officials are trying to get the game, sort of keep it between the, whistles, and sometimes guys are finishing checks that typically don't in the playoffs, and they're working harder defensively. That can lead to infractions. It can lead to extra slash and a stick if you're reloading harder. If you're a guy that doesn't finish his checks all the time, you might be late, so you might get, what I mean? I think there's sometimes the aggressiveness of the game ramps up so much that can be more penalties called. Late in the game, if you're out of the game, sometimes you know what, I'm going to send a message, much more than you would in the middle of January. You might say in the third period, okay, we're going to go out and finish every check. We're down by 3 goals, and then that could lead to more penalties. So the numbers might say I'm wrong, and you're right, but I don't know. It seems like there are more penalties called early. I think as it goes along, the teams settle in. That's when they tend to say, okay, any close game, it's going to have to be obvious. So we're comfortable 5-on-5. We're one of the better 5-on-5 teams. If it turns out it's a game where there's not a lot of penalties, we don't get a call that we feel we deserve, we're fine. We'll just keep playing. And play the game in front of us. I think that's an advantage of our team, is we can win a lot of different ways. We don't need to be on the power play 5 times a night or whatever. We can play different ways. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. I think our guys are going into the game. They're not worried about what the official's calling or not calling, unless it's obvious. Once, they're just playing hockey.
Bruce, after the last home game and before you left for the last 2 games, you said it was an opportunity to rest some guys, do some line changes, and learn some things, maybe experiment. What did you learn in those 2 last games?
Well, I learned we still like to win. We were right there in Calgary, had a lead. Like, we had a tough start to the third, I think it was. Let them back in the game, but we competed hard after it was 4-3 to get the next goal. Vancouver, we got better as the game went along, so our guys still took pride in winning. I learned that we played the right way for the most part. We didn't just decide, these games matter at some level, they're points, and it's the NHL, but the big picture, we're going into next week, opening at home, we're in first place. They didn't just all of a sudden abandon, and lay the goalie out to dry and just try to trade chances. So I learned that, our guys want to prepare and keep our details in order going into, game one. And I thought they did a good job with that. As for individual stuff, we played some people, Howie played with Jack the last game, and Pav on the right. Maybe you learn to, can that line, if you have to juggle your lines, and, a couple of different things like that. But that's it. I learned that the sun does shine in Vancouver periodically. It was a beautiful day there. Every time we've been there in the past, it's been raining. It was awesome to walk around in the sun.
What's the aspect of Minnesota's game you think they're best at, and how do you neutralize
team
what that
defense?
is?
I think they're good at keeping the puck out of their net, and that usually a product of not allowing the rush game to get going. I think they're very good at suppressing rush chances and not giving you odd man rushes, easy opportunities. You're going to have to get inside. You're going to have to work, create your offense through ozone play or half court, whatever you want to call it. Get on the power play. That's an advantage you can, or an area you can score. They've given up some goals in the PK, but the rush game I think is they're really good at. So, and then they've got a good low to high game. Their D are good. They're mobile. They get their shots through, so they're good at rebounds, deflection type of thing in ozone. Because they're not a high risk team. They tend not to have the rush game themselves, right? Because it's hard if your D aren't pressing a lot and committing to the rush on offense to defend it the other way. So that's the part of the game. It tends to be a little more half courtish. So forecheck's important. Ozone puck recoveries are going to be important for us. When we do get time and space in their zone, make sure our spacing's good. And if it opens up, then convert on the rush. I think that's how you'd open up the game against them. If you get a lead, sometimes you have to open up the game. And I don't know if that'd be an advantage us. They got good offensive players too. They're come back in the lineup, but I know we're good at it.
Bruce, you have a lot of cup winners in that locker room and on the bench. How much does that mean going into a playoffs?
Well, you can draw on your experiences. I think every year is a new year on their own. I think if experience was the be-all, end-all, teams would repeat way more often, right? That just would happen. And you got to get out there and play. So the experience will probably matter in critical moments. Maybe it's going sideways on you at home in a game and you're able to just relax. Hey, it's not the end of the world. Let's just play. You're not going to be perfect. Or in a series, if you get down a game, knowing that, hey, it's a long series, it can change in a hurry. Those are the things I think where being there before matters. But at the end of the day, to me, it's a team that plays the best and is hungry, right? I think before you win a cup, you are pretty hungry to get there. And we got to reclaim that feeling we had 2 years ago. The guys that were close but hadn't quite got there, a lot of them were the misfits from 18. And then there were guys from other organizations like myself that have been close, so knew how hungry you were and how much you wanted it. And that's kind of what we have to reclaim is that part, because that needs to be equal to the other team, unless you're way better. And you come into the playoffs, I mean, it's 16 teams that are not that different. There's some that are obviously have advantages over others, but they're all good hockey teams. So that hunger and competitiveness has to be at the top of the list.
You said, I think last week, going into a first game of a series, you can almost over-prepare. What is the fine line as a coaching staff to make sure the guys have enough info without overdoing it?
Well, I brought it up today with these guys. I said, listen, we've done all the work, and okay, so this is what we're going to do today, and we're going to go on the ice and we're going to practice our way. We're not going to throw in a bunch of new drills, a couple of things that could help against Minnesota's tendencies, but without having them stop and think too much. So we're going to give them information. How much is the right amount? Well, if we don't give them enough, we don't want to look like idiots as coaches, and then they say, well, we didn't know this or that. So then you overload them, and they're like, well, I can't play because I'm just thinking the whole time instead of playing. So I don't have an easy answer for finding that balance. Over time, you learn, what your team can take. And what I have learned about playoffs, game one, I think the series starts after game one, you see what you are a little bit and what they are. Okay, away we go. Okay, I didn't see this coming. I saw this coming. Yeah, this is who they are. Yeah, here's where they, and then you start making a few adjustments, and then it goes along. I can give them all they want on Minnesota. They're going to give us all about Vegas, but once you start playing, that's when I think you get to really truly know and get into it. So you got to be careful you don't overload. I have learned that. You know, we want to be true to ourselves and play our game. Hey, here's what Minnesota does well, but we're going to play our game, let them adjust us. That's not a bad mindset. And you're not going in blind because you are having meeting on tendencies, but I don't think you can cover every little detail. It's not one football game. It's a series, right? So I think you got to be careful with that. And then there's, hey, if you're a cerebral player, go see one of the coaches in your area and say, hey, I'd like a little more on Eriksson Ek. Okay, so not everyone needs to know that information because they may not have that matchup or, you know, whatever. I'm using that as an example. So you got to be a little careful that you don't get too much into the minutia, and all of a sudden the guys are like, what? I mean, you know, because it can get that way in a hurry. They want to play. They want to play hockey. They've done it 82 times this year, and they want to play Vegas Golden Knights hockey, and they don't want to hear every detail about Minnesota.
Just to follow up on Willie's question a little while ago, you were able to play a lot of people in different spots up and down the lineup. I'm thinking like Waugh, Howden, you got Korzak and Hutton in there. For you, as the playoffs go on and there's an attrition factor at work, how much trust have you developed with these guys if you have to put a Korzak in the lineup or if you have to play Waugh on a different line in the event someone else goes out?
Well, I have no problem doing it because that's, if someone's hurt, that's the hand you're dealt, and you can't use that as an excuse, right, or you're done. Every team that wins at the end of the day probably has a story where a guy went in, Aiden Hill, use him as a story, right? He went in. Nice, Darren, good. But he went in the middle of it, and we had to trust that he'd get the job done, all right? That's probably the most extreme situation when your goalie goes out. So, you know, your team has to be dialed in and know that, hey, they've been there and done it. They played for us this year. This isn't a guy off the street. So I think that's how we look at it. Now, maybe you re-game plan who's he playing against, right? If Jack goes out and Waugh has to move up, or they, you know, what's the match? Maybe we switch the matchups here. Whatever the case may be, but we have lots of trust in our guys. Corsi's played 40 games, played half the season, and most of that was the second half. So he's played a lot. Huddy, on the other hand, hasn't played a lot. We really had to try to work him in if we expect to get some minutes out of him if we need the, that situation. So that's the way I look at that. We're fortunate we got depth. 2 years ago, the year we won, I think we were sitting some pretty good defensemen. Phil was out, Cotter, Teddy Bluger, and they'd all, they were all NHL players that year. They weren't kids that were called up. So you need your depth. We used it to our advantage. And if you have a run, that's what's expected. And guys got to know that and stay ready. And I think the guys in the room trust everyone here. They've all played for us. So that won't be an issue at all.
Two more really quick, Nick and Ryan.
Well, Jack Eichel set the single-season franchise points record this year, and he's played really well against the Wild this season in 2 games. One time he had a hat trick. The other time he recorded 2 assists. How important will Jack be, not just this series, but also through the playoffs?
Well, your best players need to be your best players in the playoffs. They don't have to be every game. Sometimes you'll go a series where he'll get neutralized. If you look, if you have a run, other guys will have to step up. So we're not saying, hey, Jack, we're jumping on your back, away you go. He knows his value to this team, that he needs to be a leader in that regard, but we're not putting on him every night. It gets tougher and tougher in the playoffs to find ice. What we do want Jack is to fight through it, knowing that, hey, he's a guy circled on the board, no matter who we play, right? That's the way it works, so you're going to have to expect special treatment, and that's a compliment to you. So that'll be the ask of Jack. Just be yourself. You don't have to be a hero. Just be yourself, play well. We got lots of other guys that will help you out along the way. And those guys, when you win, usually make some special plays along the way because they can, right? They're elite players. So hopefully that's the case with Jack.
Along the lines of Pavel Dorofeyev, 35 goals in the regular season, translating that to the postseason where he doesn't have a lot of experience in that spot. How difficult is that going to be, considering the fact that he is a 35 goal scorer?
Well, I think he's played 1 game last year, right? So but he's been around it. So I'll say that. It won't be new to him being around the atmosphere, and he knows the level of intensity, and it goes up. Now we just got to get out there, enjoy it, and do it like every other young guy that ends up pushing their way in, right? Every one of our guys has been through that as a young guy. So hopefully they talk him through it at times where he might get, wow, this is hard. Well, it is hard. It's hard to win the cup. That's okay, you know. Same thing. Pav, you don't have to be our leading scorer in the playoffs because you did it during the regular season. We expect you to put yourself in positions and we'll put you to score, and you're going to have to work hard to score. But, you know, listen, it's ups and downs in the playoffs. That's why we're a team. So that'll be the message to Pav, and to enjoy it, right? He's had a great year. So there's no reason why he can't continue doing what he does. He just might not do it at the same numbers level because it's harder. And he might do more. Who knows, right? Like, I'm not putting a ceiling on the guy. Some young guys pop in there and it's away they go. So we'll see how it works out for him.